So Paulo Costa versus Ikram Aliskerov has officially been canceled for UFC 291, and Costa yet again fails us as a MMA fighter and becomes the Mr. Pull-Out God. Pause. He has become Mr. Pull-Out in terms of MMA fighting. He is the worst guy in terms of booking. Whenever you see Costa booked for a matchup in the future, there's a high possibility that he's going to pull out. The whole Marvin Vettori fiasco was a complete embarrassment to the UFC. It ruined the main event almost, but it put out a lot of stress on Marvin Vettori. It was not fair to him at all. And Costa just didn't want to make weight. And I think this time, him pulling out of this fight against Ikram is one too many. It's strike three. He's out. There's no way that he can redeem himself after this. And apparently he's trying to fight Khamzat Chimaev in Abu Dhabi in October. I don't care. I don't want to see it happen. We can't trust you to fight anybody anymore. That's the issue. And with a guy like Khamzat Chimaev, who's apparently supposed to be fighting Jared Cannonier, supposed to be fighting Kamaru Usman, supposed to fight Paulo Costa originally. So what amount of confidence do I have, or even the UFC have, of giving him that matchup? Why does he deserve it? He just can't ever stay booked in a matchup. If the UFC can't trust you to stay true to your contract and fight a guy who you're scheduled to fight with for months now, and you can't pull through what it feels like almost ever, there's no way that they want to waste their time trying to book you with a top name guy like Khamzat, who, let's be honest here, has a plethora of names that he can fight right now at middleweight. So I don't think that they're going to book this at all. And that leads me to say, it's time. I think it's finally time. We have to cut Paulo Costa from the UFC. I don't care if he's trying to fight Khamzat. I don't care if he's injured or whatever it may be. It seems like he's healthy, but I don't care what it is. He has to be cut. This guy does not fight. Ever since he lost to Israel Adesanya, he's been in shambles about this. He pulled out of the Whitaker fight, then he pulled out of the Cannonier fight, and the whole Marvin Vettori situation, which we know was crazy. That fight, luckily, by the grace of God, got made. So at this point, it's like, bro, can we even trust you to fight anybody? I know he just beat Luke Rockhold, but it's like, who cares? It's Luke Rockhold. He retired after that. He wanted to fight Mike Perry at BKFC, but he was done. He was washed up, coming off 2 years off? Like, that was pretty much a layup for you. And you still kind of made an iffy performance. I don't think Costa is reliable anymore. He's not a guy who you can go in there and rely on him to save the UFC. He's caused more issues than he has helped them out. At one point, he was a great name and he had a great build up to the Adesanya matchup. But now he's kind of lost that mystique. He's kind of frustrated us as fans and definitely frustrated the UFC. So I don't see how you can even think about relying on this guy to stay booked in a matchup ever again. He just doesn't want to fight. It's just that simple. I don't think Paulo Costa wants to stay fighting. I think he's washed himself up and he loves posting his Twitter memes. I know he's funny. I know his personality is great. And I love him as a personality. But at the end of the day, you're an MMA fighter first. This is your job. This is what you do. And if you can't be reliable and stay booked for a matchup and follow through in fighting somebody, you're not worth it to the UFC. Paulo Costa now has become an expense to the UFC. He is now a nuisance and he is almost becoming worthless to them. I would not blame him one bit if they end up getting rid of Paulo Costa. I wouldn't be mad about it. Honestly, if this guy doesn't want to fight, guess what? He's gone out of here, book him, go back to the regional scene, go back to Brazil and fight some people there. It has to be like that. It just has to be that way. I'm sorry. I don't know how many times I can reiterate this. Paulo Costa is becoming one of the more unbearable fighters to be around in the UFC. We always get excited for his matchups. We're always hyped to watch a Paulo Costa fight because he brings it. He's an exciting fighter. He can definitely bring the revenue. He can definitely still be a star in the UFC. But if he doesn't want to fight, there's just no reason to keep him around. And honestly, I kind of feel bad for Ikram Aliskerov. Even though he doesn't deserve this matchup in the first place, he only has one win in the UFC and he's getting a top-ranked middleweight in Paulo Costa. He does not deserve it at all, one bit. It sucks for him because he does get a chance to make his way into the rankings fairly quickly and get a future matchup with maybe a Khamzat Chimaev who he lost to by KO. Or he might get a Bo Nickel maybe, who knows. The future was looking bright for Ikram. And he went through a whole training camp. He spent months preparing for this fight just for Paulo Costa to pull out because he wants to fight somebody else. What the fuck, bro? This guy was probably training his ass off. He was probably putting a lot of money into his camp because Ikram hasn't made his money yet. This guy was in the regional scene. He just got here. I don't think he's a huge name over in Russia or the Eastern Hemisphere. So he was probably putting some money out of his account, probably going in some debt here so that he can make it to this fight and really be in shape for it. And you just pull out of it. All that shit to waste. Now he has to fight probably some can on short notice who he's going to beat. And it's just like, bro, what? I really feel bad for Ikram here. I mean, it just is what it is. Paulo Costa is a choke artist. He's not shit anymore. He's not shit. So what do we do with Paulo Costa now? I don't know. Do not give him Khamzat Chimaev. He doesn't deserve it. Give Khamzat somebody who will actually be willing to follow through and fight him. I think Costa will want to fight him and definitely will take that matchup. But I think that he's just so unreliable. We can't let him fight Khamzat and just ruin another pay-per-view card. We cannot get hype for probably a feature fight of a pay-per-view card. Khamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa. We're all getting excited for it. And a week before the fight even happens, Costa pulls out. We just can't have that. So give Chimaev somebody who will be willing to fight him, who you know will follow through with the matchup unless barring injury. So like give him a Cannonier, give him a Usman, give him, I don't even fucking care. Give him a Whitaker. Who knows? I don't care. Just don't give him Paulo Costa. He doesn't deserve it. You don't get to pull out of fights and get a nice ranked matchup for yourself, a nice name value. Basically, Costa getting Chimaev would be a blessing for him. Even because if he beats Chimaev, he's a huge name again. He's a star. He's reborn from the ashes. He's the phoenix coming out again. He's the next big thing that can fight Adesanya again at middleweight. So no, you don't get him. You don't get Chimaev. And honestly, Chimaev doesn't deserve to get Paulo Costa anyways, because I mean, he's been out for a while now, but there's been some weird thing probably with his visa and then like going out of Russia. And there's been some theories going around about Chimaev, so I'm not going to hold anything too against him. They shouldn't be fighting each other in the first place, if I'm being totally honest with you. Chimaev has, what, like 2 wins, maybe 1 win at middleweight, so it's like the same thing with Liskarov, but it's just Chimaev did more work at welterweight. So that leaves 2 options in my opinion. Give him somebody that's lower down the rankings who's a dangerous matchup for him. And if he does lose that matchup, goodbye. See ya, Paulo Costa. Have fun in Brazil with your secret juice. Or you can just cut him from the sport. Just straight up say goodbye. You're done. It's over. It's a wrap for you. See you later. I don't mind either. Because if you give him a matchup that's not so favorable for him, that's lower down the rankings, and he pulls out, you can just cut him anyways. You have enough ammo to just cut him now. You're probably paying Costa a lot of money, let's be honest. You're probably paying him a hefty sum for him to fight. And if he's not fighting, and if he ends up losing or not being a big name like he usually is, there's no point in keeping him around. He's not one of these former champs who you can restructure their contract and tone it down a little bit. He's one of these guys who's going to take the most amount of money that he can get. He was in a huge contract dispute with the UFC too. I forgot about that. He was actually going to leave the UFC and be a free agent earlier this year or somewhat late last year because he didn't get paid enough. So what are you even in the UFC for at this point? But apparently that deal got done. I don't know. But at this point, he's just a complete burden. It's time for him to go, in my opinion. Bye-bye, Paulo Costa. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I love hearing your thoughts. But that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon as well for notifications. Cut Paulo Costa or give him someone lower down the rankings. I'm out of here. Peace.